Good evening, friend. We're beginning to run out of tales about me, but still, you seek them out. I cannot help but be touched. What tale do you think they have for you tonight?
Moriden Athluan.
Skyrim was not the only land to benefit from the mighty hands of the Dragonborn. Even the distant island of Solstheim, part of the ancient home of the Dunmeri people, was to feel the effects of his passing.
On the roads of Skyrim, Moriden had long been chased and hunted by a cult. This cult served a master whose name had long been lost to legend, the name of Mirak, the first Dragonborn.
Ah, this one. I should have realized.
Seeking only to stop the pursuit of his life, Moriden would travel to Solstheim to seek out this Mirak and silence him forever.
They have that part right, at least.
What he sought was not what he found. Instead, he found an island under siege, a people who moved as in a dream, and a Daedric lord who pulled the strings as a puppet.
Come now, and hear the tale of Moriden Athluan's time among the Skal, and of the fall of Mirak.
One of the shorter tales about me, but an important one. I learned things on that journey. Things that nobody should ever learn about themselves. Most of what they will tell you, well, better than most of their tales. The truth, though, the truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Prologue. I fought in the Civil War and was abandoned. I turned to the Aedra and I was disillusioned. I was turned into a vampiric nightmare and I left it behind. I saved the world twice and I was ignored. My experiences with what Skyrim had to offer me had not been the best. But at last, in the companions, I had a result I could be proud of. They, at least, had not stabbed me in the back, nor had I done the same to them, despite my original intentions. I was their Harbinger, first among equals. This was not my only success. I had been named as landed nobility, a thane in half the holds of Skyrim. The museum was flourishing. The Explorers Guild was expanding. Finally, I had thought that I would be able to simply relax for a time, to at last enjoy the benefits of a life I'd worked, fought, and bled for. I should have known better. I had some small time to enjoy these, but there were old debts and deals that I would be called on to pay. There were 2 Daedric lords who had yet to seek me out. There was a cult of maniacs from Solstheim who continued to do their best to kill me for reasons that I could not understand. I ignored these cultists for a time, but eventually I would have no choice. I would go to Solstheim. The bards would tell you that I went there to vanquish a returning evil. No, I went to get some peace. Had they simply left me alone, well, then I suppose that Mirac would have broken free and the world would be different indeed. No, the truth of that time is about more than just defeating a powerful foe or following the path laid out for me by Akatosh and the Daedric Lords. It wasn't even just seeking power. The truth is not what the bards would have you believe. 22 Suns Dawn, 4th Era, 202. Most of the circle remained behind to explore and mourn. I left for Yavaska to spread the glad news with the other companions, as well as announce my new position as their Harbinger. I had little else in mind for what I would do next, so I was trying to simply enjoy the ride and the glory of the last day's events. Naturally, it couldn't last, though I did see something new. Another dove with delusions of grandeur attacked me as I was passing near Watch Hill, where plenty of Whiterun guards were posted. That, however, I had seen. What I had never seen before was a giant run into the battle and start smashing into the beast with its own club. Entertaining, for the few moments it lasted. The giants, as well as most of the guards at the station, all fell in short order. The dove followed a minute or so later, and after absorbing its soul and collecting the remains that were useful, I turned back towards Whiterun. The dragon fight had slowed me down enough that Aella caught up to me before I reached the city. It made things easier, in a way, having her there to make the announcement about my status, less awkward. Some of these people had been in the Companions for far longer than I. My rise to the position of Harbinger would have been odd from their perspective. I'd have suspected something awry if I had been in their position. I made no speech to them. I went back out to the yard and practiced. Blade and shield, blow and arrow, even some fireballs, once I knew it was mostly cleared. Hours I spent in practice until I was exhausted. A good ending to the day, I think. Then I realized that I need not return to Breezehome and the dark memories there. I had here, Jorvaska, where the quarters of the Harbinger were now mine. A strange thing to think of, but I'd made use of it that night. 23 Suns Dusk, 4th Era, 202. I woke, took breakfast with the entire assembled companions, and then announced that Aella would speak for me, if anything needed speaking on. It was not that I did not intend to remain at Jorvaska for the foreseeable future, but I did have other obligations, other people that I needed to check in with. I felt like I was making excuses, though all present seemed to understand. The museum was still a major undertaking for me, as was being the guildmaster of the Explorers Guild. I rode for solitude, and spent several hours working, either displaying the new artifacts that I had procured in the last little while, or making replicas of those which I could not. Life looked to be settling down somewhat. There were no real threats to worry about, although those Solstheim cultists were a pain. I felt free, I suppose. Free to do whatever it was that I wanted. I've never had that freedom before. Or, well, I suppose I did when I was a beggar, but since I've left Windhelm, certainly. The closest to a pressing issue I had were a number of suggestions from Aryan of artifacts I might wish to look for. If things remain peaceful, those sound like ideal minor pursuits. I also met with Mirazi to see about the state of the guild. He has plans for one additional way station, one he hopes will become a bit of a trade station as well. His chosen location, near Fort Amol, sits on a crossroad between the Rift, Whiterun, and Windhelm. Though the war is now several months over and done, there is still some animosity between the latter two, so having a neutral ground for the merchants to meet does make some sense. When I agreed, I was also informed that there was one additional requirement, a pittance, really. Eastmarch has a few laws that needed to be met, including a tax on the proposed site. All told, not much. A mere 2,000 septums to clear it all out. I had that much on me, so I handed it over and told him to take care of it. Naturally, I'll need to look into the site and help finish it off, but I have a lot more time, I think, than I used to. I'll likely head off tomorrow to see it all dealt with. I've also gotten more clarification regarding one of the tools I've been looking for, and it's in a place I've been long before. Not sure how I missed it, but I plan to revisit Raldbathar briefly as well to locate it. I recall when I was here last that I had deliberately avoided killing a certain set of bandits who had been here. I'm still not sure why, but those survivors had been rebuilding their numbers. Fortunately for them, I wasn't here to clean up the mess, and I knew how to get where I needed without slogging through the entire ruin again. I made a few climbs, worked around their sentries, and returned to Raldbathar through the exit I'd used long ago. It didn't take long to remember this place. The gears were still unfouled, thankfully, and the large centurion still dead, as it should be. I did a more exacting search this time around and eventually found what I was looking for. No wonder I'd not seen it. The skeleton that was holding Kriana's quill was all but piled under by rubble and debris. Now that it's in hand, I shall return to the surface, sleep away the night, and then resume my trip towards Eastmarch and the new way station. 24 Sun's Dawn, 4th Era, 202. By the time I awoke and made my way to the new station site, the work was all but completed. There is something to be said for the idea of motivating the workers with a substantial bonus for quick work that is still sturdy and safe. I checked over the work as well as made arrangements for local guards to be placed on the building. As with the other two, this station will provide something this portion of the world does not have: a safe shelter. I remember many a walk through this region where having a safe place to have stayed for a night would have been most welcome. What I could not have, I have now helped to provide to others. I took the time to look over Aryan's notes a bit more closely, and believe several of these items are already at the museum. I'll need to check on those when I return. As for two of the others, one is a saber that was supposed to arrive by ship in Solitude. As with the fate of Miriam's ship, it's likely a wreck somewhere, which means that checking the northern shores seemed the correct idea. I rode for Dawnstar, then turned west along the northern coast. A large wreck eventually caught my interest, and on getting close enough, it turned out that my hunch had been correct. The Brinehammer, the ship the Saber was supposed to be on, was on her side, large holes in various parts of her hull. Inside, where it was much drier, I began my search. The notes were detailed as to the weapon's appearance, and from the way things had been tossed around inside, the search was going to be a tough one. There are a few clues here, but I would wager the ship was set upon by pirates, or some such. The bodies that I have found all seem to have died from sword or axe wounds, which would make sense for that kind of attack. It would also explain why the saber I was looking for was embedded into the wall, likely a missed thrust that cost its wielder their life. No such worries on my part. The weapon went into my pack, and I departed the shell of a ship. The other item that I might have a good lead on is the Ice Blade of the Monarch. Though the clue comes from a dream of the last owner, I've seen too many dreams be real in the recent past. The dream indicates the tomb of King Olaf One-Eye, one of the few kings of Skyrim who wasn't buried anywhere near Windhelm. Instead, he's in one on the west of Morthal, on the way towards Solitude, so it looks like I'm checking out an old crypt today. It's nice to be doing so because I wish to, and not because I have to. This tomb is going to be far more interesting than I had guessed. The front room featured a ghost that waved me onwards, as though it wanted me to follow it. That, though, I have seen many times. The ruby claw key, however. This place must be linked to the dragons and the old dragon war somehow. The more I'm thinking on it, though, the more it feels... Oh, of course. King Olaf Onai is the only other man in history that I'm aware of that ever caught a dragon, Numenex, if I recall correctly. The inspiration for what I did to Odahviing. How very interesting. I wonder what more I will find here. Well, apart from hordes of Draugr, of course, that goes without saying. Through much of the tomb, I saw nothing of any real note. Variations of previous tombs mostly, though one section had what felt like a sliding door puzzle. I opened one door, 2 others would close behind me, and so forth. It was far more linear than I had thought, and quickly passed through, but interesting nonetheless. The Draugr and frostbite spiders kept things interesting without being any real threat, and then I saw a door that glowed faintly purple in the darkness. I have no idea why it would do so, and I'm hesitant to mess with it unless I need to. I bypassed it. There was another corridor that led onward nearby. If it is important, I will come back to it, I'm sure. Well, this is strange. Not something I'd thought I would find here. At the bottom of the pathway, I found a ghost behind a locked door. It looked down on a corpse clutching a book that also glowed purple. Likely not a coincidence. I'd thought to find a book of magic or some such, but instead, I find one of the worst set of bardic rhymes I have ever heard. Horrible or not, the implication of the verse is that Olaf One-Eye had fooled all of Skyrim, that his capture of Numenex was a con of some kind. If true, then I suppose I am the only one to actually pull it off, but this sounds more like the verse of a bard who had a personal beef of some kind with the king. Not that I can read all of it, much of it is in ruins. Maybe the Bard's College can make something of it, or maybe I'll just keep it and tuck it away. The bards I've run into so far have all been self-important imbeciles who think that their talent with a musical instrument or their voice gives them the right to decide what historical fact or fiction is, without regard to truth. Bah. The truth is only rarely what the bards would have me believe, I think. I had retreated back to the door I had seen earlier, and the same ghost dispelled the door's mystical lock and opened it into the Hall of Stories. I had half expected that I'd have to deal with another round of Draugr too, but no. This place was empty, making it easy to input the correct symbols and move forwards. A nice and easy change of pace so far. If I'm not careful, I'll actually be enjoying myself. The fight I ended up in was quite unlike any other fight I have ever experienced. The ghost I had been following, I assume it is the lousy bard who wrote the atrocious verse I found, challenged old King One-Eye to a fight as I entered the main tomb. Draugr all rose to defend their king's honor, and this bard ghost just laid into them, no hesitation at all. I threw fireballs into the mech, setting them all on fire and burning them to ashes, but never once did they turn from this ghostly target, which made things easy. I claimed the ice blade from the remains of King Olaf, learned the final word of Whirlwind Sprint, and left the tomb. I considered going looking for Shalador Stone, but its most likely location, Labyrinthian, has one more thing I've wanted to look into as well. To do that one, though, I will need the masks of the dragon priests, so that means solitude first, for a quick stop. 25 Sans Dawn, 4th Era, 202. A quick stop at the museum, and I had all of the masks I believe I needed. I entered the shattered hut that I had discovered the wooden mask in several months ago, and, acting on the instructions of the journal I had found there, put that wooden mask on. The world faded away, and then reappeared, looking substantially better than the version of the room I had just left. This one was not wrecked, and the same stand or display was present. Again taking my cue from the journal, I placed all the other masks on the wooden faces. The central section opened up, and I took a new mask, one visually distinct from the others. Canaric's mask. I'd ask Aryan for the full rundown on it, but I care for my sanity a little too much. I'll just display it and let him explain it to everyone else. Shalador's stone should be, oddly enough, located inside of Shalador's maze. Using a variety of magics from multiple schools, one is supposed to be able to travel through the maze to retrieve, well, the legends never say. It is known that there are 2 entrances to the maze, each on opposing sides of the maze proper. I started with the closer one and discovered that it is not so much a maze as a very long and winding path. During this long walk I located what I believe to be the stone, but I'm not going to stop here. As best I know, nobody has traveled the entire maze, and doing so might finally unlock its purpose. I'm not sure why nobody ever has, as it seems quite simple to me, but since I'm here, I may as well. After a time, I dropped into an underground region, which led me back to the surface, outside of the maze. Thinking that I had solved one side of the maze, I turned to walk to the other, and discovered a word wall was located here as well. The second word of dismay is now mine, as a bonus for all my hard work here in the maze. Time to walk the other half, which I imagine is the same as the first one, just mirrored. The other end dropped me down into the same area, where a portal now appeared instead of a clear path. Stepping into it, I was confronted by a Dremora. Not difficult. As soon as I hit the thing, though, we ended up back in the entrance to the maze, where the Dremora and 2 Atronoks continued the attack. They were remarkably easy to defeat, honestly. The diadem on the Dremora seemed interesting, though, so I picked that up and departed the maze, heading back to the museum. I have some new things to throw up there, I think. On return to the museum, I sorted through the recent acquisitions, put them on display, or back on display, as the case may be, and then wandered over to speak with Marazi and let him know that the way station was completed and ready for business. For the moment, there doesn't seem to be anything more to be done on that front, though he did mention that there was some kind of oddity over in the rift, near Fort Greenwall. And it was a pretty thin lead, but why not? I'll run by there tomorrow and see if I can find anything. Worst case, I just have a nice run across the province, and if it doesn't pan out, maybe I start thinking about going to the holds where I don't hold any power yet, starting here in Solitude perhaps, and start changing that.